Hi friends, welcome to my home in Rowlett, Texas. It's Joey Resendez here, and welcome to 2019 and the first video of the year. So I thought I might do a video on a fun subject to start the year off with. I mean, let's face it, all saxophone's fun, right? This is a topic that I've been asked about a bit over the last few years, and I've taught some, and it's the technique of double tonguing. So why would a saxophone double tongue, or can they double tongue? Well, of course they can double tongue. You know, flutes can double tongue, brass instruments certainly can, and if we're just being completely honest here, I mean, it's just fun. Playing fast is fun. We're saxophone players. We're natural show-offs, right? So, I mean, playing fast is fun. And there's times where you're going to be presented with, you know, needing to tongue something, and it's not going to be, it's going to be maybe a little bit, maybe a lot of it faster or beyond your capabilities of what you can comfortably single tongue it at. I know I've encountered that plenty of times over the, you know, 20, however many years I've played the saxophone. So, and I really started getting interested, or really trying to learn the technique of double tonguing when I was a master's student at the University of Michigan. I was studying under Donald Cinta, who was teaching there at the time, taught there for many, many years. And he is one of the best double tonguers that I've ever heard. And I've learned a lot from him. I've formed my own opinions on how it's produced. And so I'm going to kind of present to you the method that I use for it, and hopefully that will help you out. So is this video going to be for everybody? Probably not going to be for everybody. I would really want you to be proficient in single tonguing first. That's going to be a lot more important than double tonguing at this point if you don't have a really good strong single tongue. Now, is there a speed at which you need to single tongue before you start learning to double tongue? I don't know about that. So I don't want to say you need to be able to tongue 16th notes at, you know, 138, 144 or whatever not before you can start learning how to double tongue, because that obviously is highly subjective, or not subjective rather, but that is going to vary a lot from, you know, student to student or professional to professional, what have you. Like, some people may only be able to single tongue 16th notes at, who knows, like 116. Others will be able to do it at 152, 160. They're at the other end of that bell curve. I myself am not quite there at the end of that bell curve where my single tongue is like that, but I'm probably, you know, pretty much near the middle of it, maybe middle to the, you know, to maybe a little bit the faster end of what my single tongue's ability is. So the only thing I would make as a prerequisite to learning to double tongue would be, you know, the basics, you know, tone production, and obviously single tongue articulation. You need to be really proficient at that, being able to produce a good single tongue articulation. And where does double tongue rank in the scope of extended, should you say, saxophone techniques? I'm not so sure that double tonguing would be considered like an extended technique, perhaps. But I would definitely think it would rank below. If we're putting the extended techniques in a hierarchy, I would say altissimo is probably number one, even though altissimo probably isn't even an extended technique nowadays. You're kind of expected, you know, as a classical saxophonist, to be able to play into the altissimo register with some flexibility and fluidity. Altissimo is right at the top there. Maybe double tongue might be number two. Who knows? And then you got your, you know, multiphonics, microtones, you know, slap tonguing and things like that. I find that double tonguing is a really useful tool, not just for contemporary, well, all saxophone music is quote unquote contemporary, but I can probably rattle off 20 saxophone pieces, written before the turn of the 21st century that I would incorporate double tonguing in, or I could incorporate double tonguing in if I chose. So it's what I'm trying to say is that it's a very useful tool, and it does not have to be delayed in learning it. You don't have to delay learning double tonguing. So let's just talk about articulation in general. So the tongue acts as a valve when you're thinking of single tongue articulation. So if there's a constant airflow going into the mouthpiece, and your tongue, which is my thumb right now, is just going to interrupt that air, right? So the tongue acts as a valve, interrupting that air. Well, in double tonguing, there's going to be 2 points of articulation. Number one is where your tongue meets the reed, and number two is where the back of your tongue touches the top of your throat, as if saying the syllable ka or ga. You have that opening. I'm sorry, the point of closure of the air is going to happen much further back than it is right here. So when talking about double tonguing, I would really think of 2 sets of syllables, really. One is the taka taka taka, which that was what Professor Tutta used. Taka 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 ta, and I a lot of the times, almost exclusively, probably about 95-97% of the time, use the syllables dugga dugga dugga, which I find are much smoother and provide more of almost a legato double tongue. But when you're talking about double tongue, you're talking about greater speeds, and I think the faster you go, the shorter it's going to sound, no matter how legato or staccato that you're trying to, whatever shortness you're trying to achieve, it's going to sound short anyway due to the speed of it. So only in very certain instances will I use taka taka taka, is when it needs to be remarkably short. But most of everything else I will use the dugga dugga dugga. So when first learning it, it's good to build up that back syllable. And what I mean by back syllable is the point at which you're going to articulate using the back of your tongue rather than the front, whether it's saying ka ka or ga ga. So you have your front syllables, ta ta ta, but you're also going to have ka 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 or ga ga ga. And you want to really do your best to make those sound the same. And so I don't think it's ever going to sound exactly 100% homogeneous. You want them to sound as close together as possible. And you need to think of a few things, or just keep some things in mind. Number one is your air always has to be very fast. If there's one thing that I would go back and tell my former self, trying to learn this, is to keep your airflow very fast and very, very steady, or else you're not going to have much success with it. And do not linger on the attacks of the back syllables or the front syllables, really. So the less time that your tongue spends interrupting the air, the better. So if you're thinking of your sound as a continuous line that you want, and your tongue is interrupting those spaces, you want interrupting that line. You want that interruption to be as minimal as possible. So less time that your tongue spends on the reed, whether it be in the front syllable or the back syllable, is optimal. Okay. So, like I said, there's 2 sets of syllables I would think. Most of the time I think dugga 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 or taka 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 taka. Okay? So, and using the mouthpiece and neck only, mouthpiece, reed, ligature, and neck only. You can practice, double tonguing with doing, kind of anything. If you're just sitting around, watching TV or whatever. Even without the mouthpiece and the neck, if you're just singing there, just think, say those syllables, tucka 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 tucka, just to get used to using those syllables. Dugga 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 da, tucka 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 da, dugga 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 da. And obviously you want to start, as with anything, you want to start slow, gradually get a little faster. Okay, so my metronome here. Get my metronome here. So this is 120. A little sound happening. Whoops. So I can single tongue this, no problem. Okay. Let's actually go a little bit slower. Get that double tongue happening, quite a bit slower actually, like about 80. So dugga 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 da. And really I'm thinking the dugga 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 da, and I'm really trying for that very kind of smooth legato-ish articulation. You can do the tucka tucka tucka, but I think over time, like as you get faster, that will become more uneven. But here it is to demonstrate. So those are the two sets of syllables that I would think of. Again, I want to stress, dugga dugga da is my number one syllable set that I would use when double tongue. So again, going back to strengthening those back syllables, seeing if you can do one whole set of those back syllables. Ga 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 ga. Making those all sound the same. Here's the front syllable. And back. And now we're going to alternate. Da ga da ga da ga da ga da. Okay, and this is over the course of weeks, maybe even months, that you'll start to get very comfortable with using those back syllables and incorporating it into double tongue. Okay, and then gradually push that tempo. That was like 60 back down there, 80. Again, we're still at a point where probably single tongue this. It's 100. This may prove starting to get a little difficult for some of you, a lot of you, some of you. Maybe single tongue it. So we're still at the point where I could probably, if something were come up at 120, I wouldn't have a lot of trouble single tonguing it. So here we're going up to 130. There's single tongue. Still, it's getting a little quick now, but I'm still able to single tongue that. Here's double tongue. Okay, and we're going up to 140. I bet this is going to be a little hard. I'll try to single tongue it first. starting to get to where if I had to do that for a consistent, extended amount of time, I'd probably have a little trouble. Here's double tongue. Here's 150. I'm not sure how much this is gonna work out for me. We may be getting to my limit here. Here, I'm gonna try single tongue first. So it's kind of leaving me behind a little bit. So if here we are at 150, and this is probably where I would probably drop out and basically saying like, okay, I'm gonna have to single tongue this, or sorry, double tongue. Here's double tongue. Okay, and from there you could just keep going. So for me, like I would probably start double tonguing like around 140. You never. As with the other things, you don't want to perform at your absolute max. Does that make sense? So like if your absolute top speed at performing something is 160, you probably should not perform it at that tempo. You should probably perform about 152 or so to help in the ease of it. Because if you're performing something at the very max tempo, it's just going to sound hard and frantic, and you don't want that. So for me, double tonguing, I would start double tonguing like around 140, 144 ish. Okay, and then from there we can just keep going. With double tongue, it's once you get it and and you're comfortable with it, it's like opening. It's like giving another 2 gears, like on a manual. It's like oh, it's just like opening your your Ferrari up. You're like, oh, I have overdrive now. I can really push the limits of what's possible. So here's 160. Again, this is just on the neck. And you can push that all the way. Let's just jump all the way up to 200 here. Da, 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 da. So that's 200. Now, are we ever going to perform on just the neck and mouthpiece? Heck no, we're not. So that is just to kind of get used to how it's going to feel and everything. So then we put the the neck on the horn, and then we start practicing what else but scales, right? So to start, I would just play maybe 4/16 in a quarter or some variation of that, like up and down a major scale. I'm gonna start down here at 150, and just again, your scales, and just to start out, do the repeated notes like we were just doing. Excuse me. Okay. Work that all the way up. Here's 170. Then all the way up to 200. Oh, excuse me. Okay, and then so that's just repeated notes. Now, where it starts to get, and there are excerpts like that, in band music where you might have to do something like that, like in if you're in high school and you ever play the Donald Hunsberger transcription of Festive Overture. There's that excerpt in there near the end of the piece where you have to double tongue, and that could get up to 160 or so, 160, 170, depending on what band you're in. And I've seen that on repertoire list for military band, you know, auditions. So that they kind of are looking to see that you can pull this off. So if you've ever, you know, have aspirations of maybe making a military band, you know, this is something that you're going to have to you know, explore. So once you get that down, you can really start, you know, practicing scales, you know, up and down without the repeated notes, you know, bum ba da dee da 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 dum. Oh, excuse me. 140. There's 152. There's 160. Let's bump it up a little bit. Here's 180. And maybe at 200, let's see. Not gonna happen today. 200. So there's, like I said, there's tons and tons and tons of pieces that you might not think that you could double tongue in, that you can. Just off the top of my head, you know, you got the Glazunov concerto in the cadenza of that. You know, those I don't know off the top of my head. And so forth and so forth. There's the Larsen concerto and the first movement of that, the cadenza in there. Holy Roller by Livy Larsen, you can double tongue in there. Like I said, there's plenty of pieces that are written, you know, before the year 2000 that use double tonguing. So the purpose of the video isn't just to to just show off for you guys, but just to kind of show you what the saxophone is capable of, you know, articulation wise. So like I said, you use to strengthen those back syllables, ka, 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 and ga, ga, ga. Incorporate them back and forth, taka, 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 daga, 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 daga. I use the taka, takas for very staccatissimo passages, like in maybe the Albright Sonata, the very first. I think I put a video of me playing the Albright Sonata in that first movement. And that's where I would use the because those have staccatissimo over them. Other things I would use with the da 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 da. Most other things. Anyway, so alternate between those two, strengthen those syllables. Go slow. You have to do it slow, and not just, you know, jump into. You're not going to go 200, you know, the same day that you start doing this. So. Have fun, and I really hope to make more of videos like this in the future. So thanks for watching, and y'all have a good day. Bye bye.